We can also make ourselves feel better by reveling in the suffering of Marco Rubio, who 2 nights ago was reported to be named to be Secretary of State. There was some interesting caveats in the reporting. I think you and I were both immediately hearing from our sources afterwards that said, this is not actually a done deal.
Right.
Like, he's leaning towards Rubio very strongly. And then probably Rubio still gets this position. But we're almost 48 hours now away from the leaking of the appointment, and there's still no official word. And if you just followed along with that first block, you saw that he's been throwing official names out every 10 minutes. And every time one comes out and it's not Marco Rubio, it's another slight to Marco Rubio, who is facing fierce opposition from the world of Tulsi Gabbard, Tucker Carlson. I don't know this from my reporting, but you would imagine Donald Trump Jr., like people like him have said that they are opposed to people like Rubio who come from the Neocon wing, as you saw from that compilation that we just put up. And we can actually play a little bit of Tulsi from last summer talking about Rubio as well. It's A6.
I think it would be a huge mistake for President Trump to choose him because he represents the neocon warmongering establishment of Washington, D.C., which stands diametrically opposed to the very policies that President Trump has always stood for, going all the way back to when he ran for president in 2016 through that first term in office, and the things that he's talking about wanting to do now. And it would send the wrong message to a lot of folks who are very concerned about the fact that we are on the brink of war with Russia and China and Iran and North Korea. If Marco Rubio is his vice president, then that is what we will face, and it will cause a lot of people to question what kind of foreign policy will actually be executed. Will it be the one that Trump wants and stands for, or will it be one that will continue the deep state neocon warmongers?
That was July 10th.
Right. And so Rubio has adopted domestically a lot of Trump's, or whatever you call it, the populist nationalist stuff when it comes to he's become more pro-worker than he used to be. He's supportive of child tax credits and other supports for working families. Foreign policy is just an unreconstructed neocon. Right?
So this is, if we skip ahead one element to A8, because Ryan just made the same point as Kurt Mills, who's the head of the American Conservative. He said Rubio is a strange pick. He has won plaudits on the new right in recent years for his Catholic social conservatism and industrial policy economics, but foreign policy, widely viewed as the area on which he is pre-Trump, also sets up a Hillary/Biden dynamic with Vance. And as if to kind of make Kurt's point, John Fetterman, this is A7, waited in sort of inexplicably.
Didn't wait for him to be appointed.
He didn't have to say anything, but he went for it. He tweeted, unsurprisingly, the other team's pick will have political differences than my own. That being said, my colleague, Senator Marco Rubio, is a strong choice, and I look forward to voting for his confirmation. This is the John Fetterman that ran on a full-blown populist, I would argue even like Bernie adjacent.
He endorsed Bernie.
Yeah.
At one point, had the endorsement of Bernie in one of his races.
His Senate campaign was in Pennsylvania, but it was sort of the version of Tim Walz that a lot of people really loved about John Fetterman, is that he was talking to voters in red counties with borderline, I would say, democratic socialism. And making people like it. So talking to Trump supporters and making people like it. So that's also part of Rubio's project on populist economics. There's no question about it. He has been really successful at sort of shoehorning those into the conservative movement. He's been a part of a really good shift on the right. Foreign policy, Ryan, you know this better than I do. His approach in Latin America in particular has been quite aggressive. Neoconservative is unreconstructed neoconservatism is a great way to put it. He did vote against the round of Ukraine funding that got really controversial. What was this, back in like January, February? Although some have pointed out he kind of took a interesting route to get to why he was voting against it. I think he has shifted a little bit on, I think he's very disillusioned with American foreign policy as a whole. Yeah. But that doesn't translate into Latin America.
No, extremely disturbing. Like the Miami Herald is already reporting that Cuba, Venezuela, any country that is not run by a kind of right-wing government right now in Latin America is panicked at the possibility of Marco Rubio becoming Secretary of State. Diaz-Balart likely will be chair of House Foreign Relations, so that'll be two, Cuban Americans who have a quite vengeful approach that they take towards Cuba in particular, but also anybody that smells like Cuba to them, which is anybody kind of to the left of Javier Milei. That's dark, but he might not get it, which is wild. It'd be amazing if this falls apart.
Yeah, he truly, at this point, when Trump is going through Ratcliffe and Pete Hegseth, and it's leaked to Maggie Haberman, and I think she co-bylined that with Jonathan Swan, both people who are like pretty well informed in Trump world. That was a couple of days ago now, and Rubio world is pretty prepared for this to happen. There was some bickering back and forth over the Rick Grenell camp, former ambassador to Germany, and the Rubio camp. Oh, not the Rubio camp, but some like new right type people who were even just trying to report on this. There's been some bickering back and forth about whether Grenell's trying to backstab Rubio, and this is like a big
can
conflict.
Only imagine he is.
He says he's not.
He's never seen a back he hasn't liked to stab. Come on.
He says he's not, but it's hard to imagine that, Don Jr. and Tucker Carlson are absolutely having input in this transition process. One of the funny bits of reporting is from Axios that Trump is basically holed up in a makeshift situation room at Mar-a-Lago where they have prepared kind of video decks for him. When he names a person, they can like put it on a series of monitors, which I compared to the great scene in Princess Diaries 2 when they're trying to choose a husband for Mia.
It's like, show me his Fox appearances. Yeah.
I think that's actually what's happening. So the reporting suggests that's what's happening, so that he can see how they would defend him. Probably explains why Kristi Noem goes to DHS, which is a pick that I find is enormously objectionable for many reasons. But anyway, all that is to say, Rubio could end up not getting the Secretary of State position because there's jockeying against what some people in MAGA world see. And Tulsi Gabbard, we're going to talk about her in the next block, but she would be one of these people who would see him as an unreconstructed neocon, especially because of his support for coups, essentially, in Latin America. Very similar, like rinse and repeat foreign policy in Latin America that we've had for decades. He's obviously Cuban, so he has a very hawkish approach to the Cuban government and the sanctions regime. He's been friendly with Bukele.
Which Trump is fine with that, yeah.
Yeah, he's been friendly with Bukele. He's been friendly with Milei. So those relationships are there.
And in case Trump is watching this from his little Situation Room,
of course,
let's play one clip that we think ought to sway him in the opposite direction when it comes to some of these picks. Look who is so excited about your picks, Mr. President-elect. Let's roll A9 here.
I know Mike Waltz, full disclosure, is a friend of mine. I feel like this, Elise Stefanik, Susie Wiles, this is probably about as team normal as you get when it comes to Donald Trump picks.
Well, I think Elise, whom I've known for many years, can certainly do a fine job at the UN, and I think Mike Waltz will be a fine national security advisor. I should probably say I'll be for him or against him, whichever would help him more, given my relationship with his boss.
So Trump's making that man happy with a lot of these picks.
He really is. Listen, like we just went through a huge list of different people and their like careers and different points in their careers and all of that. But if you are, let's say you're Donald Trump Jr. or you are Tucker Carlson and you're looking at this list as that graphic in A5 showed just some of the upset in Trump world over Marco Rubio, that's going to extend. There are a lot of people, John Bolton is an example, but there are a lot of people who are more establishment types in Trump world who are looking at this and are really, really happy because they feel like it shows Donald Trump is surrounding himself with like quote unquote serious people. They're not going to be so happy about Pete Hegseth, I'm sure, and that's where the Senate, rubber could meet the road when some of these senators are asked to actually vote on that. Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.